Yeah, it's rewind time.
Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash, and welcome to another edition of the Flashback Reviews, where we look back at some of the most beloved and, more importantly, in regards to, I guess, how we select them, the highest rated episodes of The Flash from the past. And in this video, we're going to be looking at one of the more memorable Flash episodes, at least from Season 1, with a rating of 9.2 out of 10 on IMDb, and this is the one where the ball started to roll quite heavily in Season 1, this episode being the mid-season finale of Season 1, otherwise known as Episode 9, otherwise entitled The Man in the Yellow Suit. Now, as we usually do, I can say that the next episode we'll be going over in the, next video, so you can rewatch it in advance if you want to, of course, is actually the first crossover event that we go over in this series, and that is the first ever crossover between The Flash and Arrow, otherwise known as Flash vs. Arrow. Now, this consists obviously of 2 episodes, that being Season 3, Episode 8 of Arrow, and Season 1, Episode 8 of The Flash. So yeah, feel free to watch that if you want to in your free time. Up to you. You don't have to. You can come into the video clean and... Well, why is it clean? I don't know. But, unwatched if you want. It's up to you. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comment section down below. What you remember from it. What were your favorite moments? Do you think it deserves to be one of the highest rated episodes of The Flash? In all the episodes that have come out. Let me know all your thoughts down there in the comments. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, want to show support, and everything like that, want to drop a like on the video to show support and all that. Now, in the lead up to this episode, this mysterious yellow blur of a man had been brought up by Barry when recounting the night his mother, Nora, had been murdered and his father, Henry, had been charged with her murder. With Barry's goal in life to find this mysterious yellow figure and, prove his father's innocence. And also, in the episode prior to this one, a new metahuman with the ability to manipulate fire has randomly shown up in Central City, and it seems like this dude might be important. But as the episode starts, we see that this mysterious yellow-suited speedster who killed Nora Allen years in the past has returned to Central City, with them being in search of Mercury Labs' tachyon particle technology. Now, Barry encounters this mysterious yellow speedster, or Reverse Flash, and engages them, but is quickly taken down, with the Reverse Flash making out that he and Barry have been lifelong enemies. Elsewhere, we see that Ronnie Raymond is revealed to be the flame-controlling metahuman from last episode. However, a bit of an issue here, he is suffering from memory loss after having survived the explosion, the particle accelerator explosion. We also have Henry Allen giving Barry some much needed father-son advice, and Barry actually ends up confessing his love for Iris before the tachyon particle technology from Mercury Labs is ended up to be used as like a bit of a, bait and lure for Reverse Flash into a trap that has been set up that ends up coming back into play later in the season. However, Reverse Flash manages to escape and proceeds to attack Harrison Wells and the Central City police that are there, with, Reverse Flash actually coming face to face with Eddie Thawne, but sparing him before attacking Barry again, with Ronnie appearing and actually fending off the Reverse Flash before they both bail. Now, due to the events of this episode, Joe ends up opening up and telling Eddie about the metahumans, but asks him to please keep it a secret. Now, Cisco goes on to realize that there are actually 2 speedsters in Barry's house the night Nora died, with us later in the episode seeing Harrison Wells enter his time vault and revealing the Reverse Flash suit in a hidden chamber in the walls of the time vault, with Wells placing the stolen Mercury Labs tachyon device on it, and he does the whole vibrating Reverse Flash voice, and he says, "Merry Christmas," fully revealing himself to us, the audience, that he is the Reverse Flash. So, of course, this is one of the more crazier episodes, and that's why it's so high, rated amongst the IMDb episodes. But what are the pros of this episode, and also, what are the cons? Is there actually any cons in this episode? Well, the pros, just the general misdirects that this episode has with Wells and Reverse Flash. Like, they were in the same room at the same time when Reverse Flash is in that trap, and we're like, well, hold on, how the hell is that, like, a thing? Especially at the end of the episode when you see that they reveal Wells as a Reverse Flash, but you then early in the episode saying, well, they haven't been trying to hide that Wells is a bit shifty, but then they're in the same room. So Wells isn't Reverse Flash. So then you're thinking, is Eddie Reverse Flash? Like, it's an older version of Eddie that's Reverse Flash, and that's why he didn't kill him in that room. It made you really confused what was going on. You still were second guessing yourself when the episode ended because you're like, how are they in the same room? Obviously, that is explained in later episodes how that was the case, but at that point in the season, we were still confused and theories were running wild. Now, in regards to things running wild and being at a high, emotions were at a decent height in this episode. Caitlin, Joe, and Barry all have a pretty emotional episode for different reasons, but it's all very personal reasons which work well in the episode. And it doesn't really feel like you were taking a weird detour away from the main story. Like, they don't try and do all the Caitlin stuff in one episode. Like, this is really an emotional episode for Barry mainly, but also Joe as well. Like, there's a really nice Joe and Barry moment in this episode, but it's a really emotional chord episode for Barry, while still having some other stuff with Caitlin, which is then explored in later episodes because of, the return of Ronnie, but it's not really Ronnie at the same time. But I thought it was really well handled in this episode, and they just didn't try to throw all of it at you at once. Like they spread it out over a couple of episodes with the different things. Of course, I would be a bit silly and a bit stupid if I did not mention the Reverse Flash versus Flash fight. Obviously, there's technically a couple in this episode, but I'm talking about the one that's more iconic. And though this is only halfway through the season, not even halfway, there's 23 episodes in the season. This is only episode 9. The fight scene with them in this episode is probably the fight that most people remember the most between the two. And I'm talking about the one in the football stadium, later in the episode, all of that. It's pretty, well, not later in the episode, but you know what I mean? It's pretty iconic, that whole episode. Like, if you say Reverse Flash versus Flash fight to someone that's watched the show, they probably think of that stadium fight, or at least that scene in the stadium with them two going at each other. It's the most iconic between them two. And it feels weird that is just because it was really the first fight between them. Really, when you look at like back in the like later in the season, like that fight that they have in like the finale and stuff, people don't really talk about that one that much. Like, I guess if you're talking about the one that's around Starlight, people talk about the Zoom one from season 2. So it is weird that this is like the more iconic one just because it was so much earlier in the, I guess, live rivalry in regards to Barry's timeline, if that makes sense. And the last pro that I want to talk about is just this episode continues the story very well. And just like, it just adds even more mystery, despite the fact we learned that Wells is Reverse Flash. I think that's the big, that's it. Like, that's the mystery done for. And this is only episode 9. So what they do for another 14 episodes, but there's more mystery added onto it. Like, as I said before, how could Wells and Reverse Flash be in the same room? Like, does Eddie have anything to do with it? There's just other things, and like what Wells is really planning to do as Reverse Flash. There's all that different mystery that's laid out here. And then also the stuff that's done with Cisco has to be explained, like on the night of Nora's murder, like why were there 2 speedsters there, and figuring all of that out. So more mystery is added to it. And I think that was smart in this episode to add more to the story, because you think the big, reveal is that Wells is Reverse Flash, which technically it is, but there's still much more to come and more to that story after that reveal. So this does a very good job in regards to keeping people hooked, despite that big reveal coming out. Now, what is the cons of this episode? Now, there's only one really slight con, and it's not even really a proper con of the episode. It's just something that was sort of, it was sort of like weird going back and watching all these years later, and I sort of forgot this was actually how things played out. And that's probably the love triangle stuff with Eddie, Iris, and Barry in this episode. And I understand that it was written this way to create tension on Eddie's side, especially towards Barry, and that he was potentially making moves on Eddie's girl, and that Iris was sort of covering it up. But it made Iris seem a bit naive and clueless to an extent, and that's only because she should be able to read people pretty well because of what would end up being her future occupation of like an investigative journalist. So I know it's building up for what it like happens with that, and also what happens with Eddie as well. But as I said, I understand why it was written this way, especially because of what happens later in the season, but also because in this episode, it leads up to Barry telling Iris how he feels by the end of the episode. But it just felt weird going back and watching it and just knowing what happens, not only later in season 1 with Eddie, Iris, Barry, all that, but just where we are in season 8 going into season 9 as well. It just felt a bit weird. Maybe I'm the only one that felt that way, but I don't know, maybe just because you knew how everything played out. So yeah. And also it made you feel a bit bad for Eddie as well, I guess, just because like he's just being strung along, maybe just felt bad for Eddie in that, because you know what happens to him and everything like that. So maybe that's what was going on. But overall, this episode I think definitely deserves to be in some of the top episodes in regards to the rating on IMDb and just from fans as well. Especially when you look back at it in the context of season 1, maybe an episode on its own, it maybe might not be in people's top 10 because there's a lot of like maybe certain episodes that we've already talked about or will talk about going forward that are better on their own, and this just plays well into the season as a whole. So maybe on its own, it's not one of the best, but as a episode that plays into the story of season 1 and what came before and what will come after, man, it's a great episode, and it definitely lives up to the hype, and definitely I think deserves to be one of those high rated episodes. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on this episode if you have watched it, or if you just remember what happened and or this video sort of sparked some memories of yours. Let me know in the comments your general thoughts and, you know, I guess likes of the episode. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Remember, the next episode or the next video of this series will be on that Flash versus Arrow crossover, so you can go watch both of those episodes if you want. But until then, guys, I'll catch you later, and goodbye.